Hello, I'm going to be looking at some DOS versions of Angband, but it's not what you're thinking. It's not the types of DOS Angbands I've been looking at in a few previous episodes, like old crusty Angband DOS versions from like, I don't know, the year 2000 or whatever. No, actually 1993 even. That's the first one. No, this is a whole different caboodle of DOS, and well, I think I'm finally done. I think I have finished my quest. So let me try to explain what it is. So I've been looking at these old Angband DOSes. Like the last one that's as young as they got was Angband 306. And I was thinking, well, if I want to play one of these DOS Angbands, it's IBM, fool. I guess it would be this one, because even though it doesn't run quite as efficiently as the oldest ones that were written by Charles Teague in the early 90s, early to mid 90s, all the ones after that are a little less CPU efficient, but they've got these cool, I just like these wall patterns and stuff. I just think they look cool. I like their sort of minimal nature. I mean, you've got like one menu. Actually, this one has some more menus. Never mind that. But you can play them in monochrome and not feel like you're missing much, and kind of easy on the eyeballs in that sense when your eyes might be a little worn out from looking at all kinds of crazy colors all day. And I was just kind of fond of them, and I thought, well, I want to play these, but so I guess this is the most recent one. It's got the most modern amenities, like you can just bump into doors and the door will open. You don't have to sit here hitting like that open button and a close button on every single door and all that kind of thing like you have to do in the early Angbands and the earliest Angbands. So I thought, all right, I had been thinking, all right, well, I can do that. That's fine. These play easily enough. They play like a modern Angband for the most part, except I knew they wouldn't do certain things. Like you're not going to have like a tab key to shoot. You can rig up a macro probably without too much trouble there. But then I started thinking about other things, like, for instance, I think you still can't look at items. There's no examine here, no. You can't shift I. Oh wait, you can examine items here. Lead-filled mace. Okay, so here's a lead-filled mace. It has not been identified. Even if I look at a weapon I know about, like my broadsword. Shift I, A. Yeah, all it does is tell me that it doesn't possess special abilities, but it doesn't tell me, like, how much damage it does. In fact, there's nothing. You can look at your character sheet. This doesn't tell you how much damage you do. And so if you wanted to, like, I was thinking about using that mace, that lead-filled mace, but how would I know? They're different weights, and that can mean different speeds, and so how would I know, especially if I was a higher level character and I was getting, like, multiple attacks and stuff, how would I know which one was really doing more damage? Well, I would have to, like, test it. I would have to, like, bang on a bunch of, more or less identical monsters in a dungeon somewhere, swap them back and forth, and see about how many asterisks of damage I was taking off the damage meter for the monster. Like, there's this gray mold's damage meter in the lower left. If I hit him with my broadsword, it just killed the whole thing. I'm on level 1 of the dungeon, and I'm level 7. Okay, so that took off 5 stars off of a large brown snake, right? So what if I switch to the mace, which is a bad idea at this point because it could be cursed. I don't know if I've carried her. I forget if I've carried her around long enough to identify, but what the heck? Oh no, I have. It's average. It's probably not cursed. Okay, so now if I bang on the snake with the mace, well, that killed him. So the mace is doing at least as much damage as my broadsword did, so that's probably good, right? But as I said, I'm only level 7, so that was probably kind of obvious just from the dice damage it had. But at higher levels, stuff like speed would become more of a weight would become more of a factor because you would get more attacks possibly. But I don't even know how that stuff works back in Angband 306. Maybe it didn't even make a difference back in 306, so you didn't need damage, average damage report or something. But I was thinking about all this one morning when I couldn't sleep, and I looked it up. The average damage calculation that you can look up now on a weapon you get in current Angbands, that didn't even come to being in the game until 2009. That was version 3.0.1 beta or something. 3.10 beta in 2009. So when you first got damage estimates, and then there were years of like bug fixes to that after that because, stuff is complicated. So, yeah, I was thinking, man, would I really want to, do all that kind of thing and deal with all that kind of stuff? Or, I mean, are we being realistic here? Is that what I would want to do with my time? And I don't know. I was waffling. Well, I started worrying about this, as is my way. And I started thinking, well, like, where is it? It's shift percentage sign in 306. You can mess with visuals, and that's in fact how I changed myself to a smiley face from the @ sign. I was looking at this shift percentage sign, and you look at the change monster attributes / cars with 6, and then you can rotate through stuff. There's the smiley. That's actually number 1 in this old IBM DOS font set. So I got to thinking, well, I know that I can swap, these weird IBM DOS font pictogram things around with these numbers that get saved into a .prf file. Because here's the one, and then I copied this between Angband 306 and 283 and 306 or something because I was messing with stuff. And so I know that's just a number there, right? Well, if I like, for instance, these walls, these checkerboard DOS walls, these are just characters in the DOS character set. There's 3 of these checkerboard patterns from sort of light to dark. Here's a couple of them here. And so in theory, I just would need to find the spot where it defines, what is the character that we use for walls. And generally in Angband, it's the pound sign, the hash sign, right? And I would just have to figure out what to substitute for that could approximate a DOS checkerboard, and where would I find could I get do fonts have something like that these days? I mean, what could I do? There's got to be something I could do to try to approximate that. And I thought about this before, but I thought, it probably, there's something that the current Angbands, there's probably something special that's going on with this DOS thing that lines them all up nice and neat and in these rows and stuff. I mean, if you just plugged in a normal font type thing, would it really line up right? Would it look, like a wall? And I had sort of not thought it was really going to be feasible, and I hadn't looked into it. Well, I was getting desperate enough to think about that kind of thing. So I went to my trusty little Notepad++ here, and I thought I would do a file search. And I knew where to find the name of the wall somehow. I don't remember where I looked that up, but something, I've been messing around with a bunch of files, and I knew where to find something about this wall. So it's called feature, feet, which is short for feature : granite wall, right? That's a wall. That's your normal average wall. It's just a hash mark in normal ASCII, modern ASCII Angband, but maybe if I found where it defines this in the code, and I know it's there somewhere because I've seen it before a long time ago. That would give me some idea of what to start thinking about for what I could substitute for that or something. So I just did a file search for that and to find it. And the first hit was surprising to me because it was this file called font-ibm.prf in a folder called customize under lib. And I thought font-ibm.prf, that's an old file. I mean, and I didn't realize this at the time, but like I had just saved one of those. I had saved a font-ibm.prf file off of the website of one of the early Angband maintainers, Ben Harrison, because Google had led me to a long lost perhaps copy of Angband 2.8.3 on his website, just sort of scattered in a directory there, not linked. I'm not sure how Google learned about it. On the front page of his site, Harrison said that he didn't host any binaries anymore, but this was just there in a directory on his site, and Google knew about it and took me to it when I Googled for, I think I just Googled Angband 2.8.3 DOS, because that isn't in the normal releases section on the regular Angband, the official Angband site. So I must have recognized this, and it got me thinking, like, wait, what? What is this doing in current Angband? I thought those were just old. I mean, Angband 2.8.3 is from 1998. So what the heck is this doing in 2022, almost 2023 Angband? So I went and looked up the file history on this file in the Angband GitHub repository, and what I saw there was this. It was a new file. It only had one history mark, and that said second pass at DOS port number 5381. That's the change file or change list or whatever the heck those are called. I'm getting that wrong. And it was by somebody named Ben Culver, and I guess maybe his second computer, on July 2nd of this year. So this Ben Culver person was doing a second pass at a DOS port this summer. I was like, what? But I wasn't even, DOS was not something I was even thinking I cared about at all as far as Angband went back in summer. So anyway, I hadn't paid any attention to this if I'd even ever noticed it. But now it was like DOS port. Somebody just tried a DOS port of Angband this summer, like current Angband. So anyway, I got really excited, and I went and looked at this, and I thought, well, that means that this could be potentially something I could compile, because all these old DOS ports from 1998 and 1993 and 2005 was the last one. I didn't ever figure I had a chance in heck of compiling, really. I mean, you could maybe, but like, how would I even cross-compile to DOS? I had no idea. Well, so I looked at this, and there was, in fact, a modern makefile that was part of this whole second pass at the DOS port by Ben Culver, which was precisely intended to let you cross-compile current Angband into a DOS executable that you could run in DOS, but also in something more likely something in like dosbox, an emulator or something. So I I gave it a shot, and it actually worked. I had to get a whole lot. I was doing this in Cygwin, which I learned later was probably not how it was intended to be used. It was probably intended to be used, or it had only actually been tested in Linux. So I ran into a few things that needed a little trial and error massaging by me. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know Linux. I know a little. I'm more comfortable with Cygwin, which is a Linux-like environment for Windows. I mean, I have like the Microsoft official, Linux thing. It's Linux for Windows for Microsoft, but there's some jankiness with that, man. I don't really like that. So I've been kind of not using that. I have it installed, but I don't really. Anyway, so I ended up finding I had to get all these additional packages for Cygwin, but Cygwin has them all, and they seem to be working once I actually installed them. There's actually instructions on the Angband online manual for compiling to DOS now, and these were part of the whole thing that Culver was checked in over the summer. And what he used was this DJGPP, which is it's a compiling environment or development environment for DOS or something like that. Basically, it's just kind of a crazy idea, but it's out there, and it took hours to compile this morning. It took hours to compile this. It's an insanely complicated system, and it's all scripted. It pulls down its own files, and it's just nuts. So that was just compiling away this morning for hours on my machine, and I was just watching it anxiously. I didn't know what. I didn't have much faith it would work at first, because how could this possibly work? I didn't even know if, this was... Well, this thing, the instructions for this thing, it has its own GitHub project. The author of this does say that Cygwin is one of the, target environments for it, so I felt reassured by that, but I was thinking, come on, there's no way this is going to actually work. It's so insanely complicated. I mean, it looks like it is. It's all running off this script. I didn't have to do much, but the script must be insanely complicated. But it actually, well, no, it didn't. It didn't build. For one thing, the first time I tried it, I typoed something like an idiot. I spelled this prefox instead of prefix. So that just didn't work, but actually I found later that it wouldn't have worked anyway. This command doesn't work. This is probably one of those Linux-specific things. That's Angband programmer Backwards Eric's theory that why some of these things didn't work right for me was that this is because I was on Cygwin and it's just a little different. It meant for Linux, so it just didn't work. It just compiled. I'm not sure why Culver would have needed this in there, though, because it just compiled itself to a similar directory that just has a different name. So it did compile, and I found it in its default directory when I did this build command after hours and hours of intense building. Yeah, the default, it built in there. So I went there, and then I there's a second path command for actually making cross-compiling Angband with this compiler. You basically just built this DOS compiler, which took forever, and then you're going to try to compile. You're going to use your environment to tell this DOS compiler that you just compiled to compile Angband for DOS. So you needed to tell it where this cross compiler was, and with another environment type command, and that one didn't work either. I wasn't too surprised by that at that point. I eventually was reading more of the instructions for this cross compiler, and they just recommended using, it had this whole thing set up to solve this exact problem. He had a little script, so you had navigate and just run this little script he's got. That did the trick there. Then I could then I could make Angband, and it worked with this make file that Ben Culver has made. It built in Cygwin, much to my shock. Then I got ambitious, and because he also set up the makefile script. You could make the documentation. I thought I might as well do that, because I guess some of the files have to be translated into, make sure all the characters in the text files and so forth are characters that can be read in DOS, I guess. Maybe is the reason for that, why you have to do this sort of complicated thing with that. We're using this Sphinx program, which is another bunch of packages I had to get for Python for Cygwin. That took a little trial and error to find out what I needed there. And actually that wasn't where the biggest problems came. So I got that working once I had all the packages. Then there's also, he even set up a part of the make file so that you can have it just zip the whole DOS Angband that you've compiled up along with the docs and all the resource files and stuff it needs into a handy little zip file that you can then just, you could send it to somebody. It's a really tiny file. How big was it? Oh, I think I destroyed it, actually. Did I? Maybe I... Angband.zip. I think it's gone. Maybe it's in my recycle bin somewhere way down. I deleted a lot of stuff today because I had a lot of trial and error. Just look at all these fonts. There it is. Angband.zip. This is the compiled distribution that I managed to make. Wait a second, that ain't right. Oh, because I actually cut the files out of it. Okay, so that's empty. That's an empty zip file. The files I actually made would have been unzipped, 3 megabytes, and I think zipped it was more like 1 point something megabytes. It's like, can Angband really be that tiny? But actually at one point he said, part of the script said it was like trying to get sounds and graphics, but I don't think it, no, there's no actual sounds that made it. I don't know if that was intentional or not. Any tiles? Well, there's some kind of, no, that's preferences file. So yeah, no sounds or graphics actually made it over. I don't know if that was by design or not. But they weren't necessary for the version I wanted to run. He did say, I saw in his notes on this that he was basing it on Angband 3.0.6, which makes sense because that's the last official DOS version of Angband. But it's specifically the non-graphical mode of that, the one I was running there with the ASCII and the checkerboard walls and stuff. Not the version of 3.06 with all kinds of crazy, with a tile set and all that kind of stuff, which was its whole own thing. But he does not seem to have attempted to replicate that system. That would, I'm sure, be rather more complicated, because that one does have sound and all kinds of different display resolutions and stuff. So there was a little bit of trouble making the distribution. And that, again, was what Backwards Eric felt was a Cygwin compatibility issue, because they was really meant for Linux. But I just kind of cut stuff out that wasn't working until the rest of it worked. And so I was thinking, man, this is not going to run. I'm just chopping stuff out. But you know, it finally zipped up, and I took it over to my dosbox directory and popped it in a folder, and I extracted it to a folder, this tiny little Angband thing that I had made, my little DOS Angband baby. This is modern DOS. This is a Angband 4.2.4 from 2022 in DOS, and this couldn't possibly work. And I ran it. Now, remember, because these other latter day Angband DOSes had kind of had high CPU usage. They had run the CPU, my 3-year-old mid-range gaming laptop CPU up to like, it would kind of be around like 12% CPU usage, just you know, running around a little ASCII dungeon in DOSbox, which seemed pretty high. Whereas the earliest Angbands, like PC Angband, Frognose Angband, from the early 90s, those did not have high CPU usage. Neither did most of the DOS Umorias. Actually, all but one of the DOS Umorias. So there's something in the latter DOS Angbands that kicked up the CPU in DOSbox these days anyway. So I don't know if that's a DOSbox issue or what, but yeah. So in order to cap that CPU usage, I had in DOSbox limited the cycles that you allow to DOSbox, which you can do to 10,000 cycles. I don't know if that's per second or what, but I don't know. But that had seemed to work, and it hadn't really slowed down these old Angbands running at 10,000 cycles in DOSbox, but it had just cut down their excessive CPU usage, and it kept their actual CPU usage below 1% on my machine. So that seemed like I basically licked that problem. So I still had that setting going when I tried running my modern Angband in DOS form. I was like, is this even, I just didn't even know if it was going to work. I wasn't even thinking about the cycles thing at that point. And I ran it, and now I have since bumped the cycles thing back to the default automatic setting, because on 10,000 cycles, it took a long time to load. But anyway, this is my modern day hip, slightly modified title screen for Angband 4.2.4 in DOSbox. It's, you know, this is the DOS version. This is it, baby. If you do, you know, Shift V, you're playing 4.2.4. That's just kind of blew my mind. I mean, you've got the whole, you got your modern day knowledge base. You got, I don't know what else is new that you can confirm was decades away from the old DOS Angbands, but it's all in here. Tab, you know, wants to fire something. If I had a tab weapon, I did edit my face to a smiley face with a, you know, perf file. I just manually edited it because I wanted my smiley face. But see, now notice, so this is running at full speed, and it's kind of chuggy. Like, this is as fast as my guy or my gal can run down a hallway. That's not real good. So yeah, modern Angband runs real slow in DOSbox, and we no longer have all the options that you could have toggled off in the old days, which would have purported to speed things up. There were all these options in old DOS Angbands that would say, you know, slow. You know, if you turn this lighting effect on, it might be slow, or if you turn on color, it'll be slow. Well, we don't really have those anymore. Yeah, there isn't much you can do to try to optimize this speed. It's just a little more than my dosbox wants to handle in a comfortable way. I even tried setting frame skip up to like 10. I would have thought that would have done something, but not really. It just made it chunkier. So, yeah, I mean, I was tickled pink that this actually worked. It's kind of amazing that this is modern Angband, and I mean, we can go up to town. What level am I in? Where's the... Heck, stop tripping slowly through the... Okay, there's a stairway. As I slowly limp over here. So yeah, I mean, this is modern Angband town. In all its horrific... I mean, really, this looks horrible, you know? This is just the worst thing. And then you just got these, you know, you got all these drunks and people drooling on you. I mean, this has got to be a turnoff for people. This is a bad... Current Angband town is a real bad introduction to the game for anybody. I just can't think that this is good. I mean, if you look at the old DOS Angbands, they're just a nice, neat square town. You still get people coming up and drooling on you, but at least it doesn't look like the whole town has been, like, chewed up and spit out and ground under Galactus's boot heel or something, you know? I'm sorry, I've been playing Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I have Galactus on the brain. It's just gross. Anyway, that's my rant on that. So yeah, it's just a little too slow. I mean, you know, you could play it if you were really determined, but it's not really how I want to play Angband. I just don't want to. I don't enjoy slowness in my ASCII games. ASCII games. One reason I like ASCII games is because they usually run real fast on any old computer you want to run them on, and this one is definitely not. So yeah, DOS Angband, pretty cool project. I don't know if Ben Culver just has some kind of super DOS machine. I mean, I wonder if he has like an actual DOS machine, and he isn't running DOSbox. That would be pretty cool. I don't have one of those. I've just got this silly laptop running Windows 11. So yeah, I mean, you can compile, you can make this for yourself. You know, you get it off the Angband repository, and you can compile this all up, and you can be running modern Angband in DOS in an emulator or whatever you got, and that's pretty wild. But it may be slow. It's slow for me. So this wasn't going to be my solution. I was like, oh well, I guess if I want to play DOS Angband, I'll be sticking with Angband 306. And there's a current issue on the Angband GitHub that's discussing like why did DOS Angband come back? 'Cause shouldn't we get rid of this? It's, you know, it's not going to have support. I mean, there's stuff that they want to do, I guess, that is not going to work for DOS Angband, so they're kind of like, you know, is this a good idea? And I'd seen that, and that had kind of got me thinking about some of this stuff, and once I finally got this compiled, I went over there in my impulsive, silly way and posted it, because the person who'd posted that didn't even think it would compile or something, and I said, well, here's a screenshot I'd compiled, and you know, and they were like, why does anybody even want DOS? And I said, well, I mean, thinking about this evening, I must have sounded like Rick Moranis' character from Ghostbusters, you know, when he was trying to like pal around with the other Ghostbusters or whatever, like, do you guys like DOS? I like DOS. You know, I think that's how I sound to, you know, normal, intelligent, skilled people when I come in and just start talking about I like DOS. Here's a screenshot, and these are the reasons why DOS Angband's cool. And anyway, I mean, hopefully I didn't type exactly that level of nonsense, but it was close to that. And I write a lot. It gets out of hand. So, I made that post, and and then of course, as is my way, because I don't think things through in a calm and rational manner, and let them percolate. After I posted it, I got to thinking, now, okay, so I'm not going to be able to play modern Angband in DOS, but there must be some way. Well, I mean, couldn't there possibly be some way for Angband to, replace, like we do with this smiley face, right? In place of the normal @ you just give it a different character ID, and it can pull that from the font, right? Basically, I mean, DOS is a little different because it's built into the DOS BIOS or whatever, I don't know, but essentially that's kind of how it works. So, there must be some way. I mean, I know that, because I've seen it a long time ago, that there's somewhere where, did I already talk about this part of it? You can define like what character defines the wall. I did talk about this. So I had already searched for that and that's how I found the DOS Angband, but then I thought about it more, and I thought, well, because I had said when I'd made this, goofy post on the discussion issue in the Angband GitHub about the DOS version, did we really want it? I had said, well, if I could just load the old font-ibm.prf file in Angband, and it would give me the checkerboard walls and stuff in, modern Angband front end, then I wouldn't need DOS. But until that works, I kind of like having the DOS thing. But I'm thinking, what if that does work? I would just need the right font, right? Like, there's got to be some kind of version of these DOS fonts or something, right? Or, maybe there is. I didn't know. So I decided to go looking, and, if you Google for the obvious stuff along those lines, you probably one of the first things you'll find is, to get the DOS, to get modern Angband working in DOS, I had to, when I tried running it in dosbox the first time, it popped up this notice saying that I needed something like CWSDPMI or something like that. There was like a question mark in there. It was kind of weird, and I just had to go find that. And you can just Google that, and it's all over the place. And you just pop this exe. I don't know what it was. It was, I didn't look it up. I just put it in there. Could have been a virus for all I knew, but it got it working. So one of the first things you would find if you Google for like DOS character set fonts or something is this site. It's got a weird URL, int10h.org, but it's like the ultimate old school PC font pack or something, it calls itself. And it's got like literally hundreds of fonts that are, I guess, emulating or whatever. I don't know if they could have extracted these actual data from old IBM BIOSes or something, but they're meant to look like and act like, on a modern Windows machine or modern computer, whatever. It's not all Windows. These old DOS BIOS fonts, and I guess they weren't fine. I don't know, whatever they were, So I tried that, and I tried some of those fonts. How did I even do that? Oh, well, I tried some in Cygwin, just running I had to compile okay, so that's actually another problem potentially with running with compiling Angband for DOS in Cygwin, because after I had done that compilation and run it and everything, oops, I don't know, just break everything here. What am I doing? Oh no, I didn't even save that stupid, I don't know, my stupid ASCII art. Okay. After I compiled it, I went back and tried to just compile a normal modern Cygwin GCU or ASCII-based version. It wouldn't compile. It was erroring out and giving me a UTF-8 error, and I was like, what the heck? And I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I thought I'd, reverted everything. Like this, the compilation process is actually pretty messy, and the makefile actually edits your source files without asking. So I had all these source files that had been edited on my machine. I had to revert those back using git commands and stuff. But I thought I'd done all that, but I still couldn't compile just regular ASCII Angband anymore, and I ended up having to just blow away my entire project directory and clone it again off of GitHub. So I don't know what that was. Probably something I was overlooking, but something got messed up there. Anyhow, fortunately I'm not an actual developer, so nothing was lost, I don't think, that would matter to anybody else. Or me, probably either. So in Cygwin, which I got rid of my shortcut because I thought I was done, not remembering I might want to show this to people. So this is a DOS font. What do we got here? Well, that's a different one. Oh, that was the only one I could get to work. So there's this other font I found. I think it's the only true type font I actually found that has the DOS, like the block, the checkerboard blocks and stuff in it. And it's just from dafont.com, which is a good font site. It's kind of been my favorite font site for a long time. I haven't been there in ages, but Google led me to somebody talking about this, and I went there, and so there's just this font called Perfect DOS VGA 437. 437 is the character set or whatever of the IBM PCs that was these funky DOS checkerboard blocks and all the other characters you used to seeing in the DOS DOS lettering. So it's just called Perfect DOS VGA 437. It's the only true type font I found that had the actual DOS characters in it. There are a bunch of TTS that come in this pack, the Ultimate Oldschool pack that I downloaded, but none of the TTF fonts in that that I tried seemed to have the actual DOS symbols in them. It was just the .fon versions of the fonts that did. So I don't know why that matters. Well, it does matter. So a FON font seems to be a bitmap, and the site itself where you get these says that if your goal is sharpness, you want to get FON fonts because those are bitmaps. They're crisp. They aren't doing like vector-based scaling, which can get blurry or anti-aliased or whatever. And that is correct. So hang on a second. Sorry. Oh no. But unfortunately, Cygwin, Cygwin's Minty terminal will not display. You can install FON files in Windows as fonts. Windows is cool with that, but Cygwin does not show them in its font selector in the Minty terminal for Cygwin. So that was a no-go. So I had to find a true type font that would work, and I eventually did find this one, which was Perfect DOS VGA 437. And now if I just fire up my ASCII version of modern Angband. Hello. I need my actual command. There we go. And you have to specify the MGCU. No, what? God. I can't remember anything. Okay. So here we are, 424. In this, DOS type font. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, you'll know if it's a correct old DOS font if the lettering looks all weird like this, because it's trying to show the DOS symbols. It's calling. Well, it is showing DOS symbols, but it's not the right symbols because it's not the same. The IDs don't match. So what you've got to do is actually load that PRF file. Which you can do in a number of ways. I'm just hitting P, load a user pref file from the Angband menu, and it's font-ibm.prf, and there it is. There's your checkerboards in. This is just the GCU front end, the ASCII front end of Angband, current Angband. And I've compiled it with SDL2 sound, which is thanks to that's something that Backwards Eric helped me out with a while back. So this looks pretty good. It is very slightly blurry, which is a little weird, but it's not as blurry as the other TrueType fonts I tried. I just tried some other random. Well, I tried some of the TrueType fonts from that ultimate Oldschool font pack, which did not have the symbols in them, but I was just, I did load them, and they were a little blurrier than this one, this Perfect DOS VGA 437 font, which actually does have the symbols. This font in particular, it's not, so one thing I had been thinking was that a modern program just isn't going to line up the checkerboard blocks like DOS would, right? And I thought I was validated in that thought here, because you can see there's these lines, these black lines separating the code block tiles. But that is actually, after looking at a whole lot more DOS fonts, the FON type fonts in a different program, some of them just had these lines, and some did not have lines separating the different blocks. It's just, I think it was actually just how some of the fonts looked back in the day. That's what I would guess anyway. I don't actually know. Oh, don't get myself killed here, my level 2 test character. So anyway, this does work. Slightly blurry in Cygwin, but you can scale it to. Well, that's the weird thing. You can scale it to any size because this is just a Cygwin TrueType font in the Cygwin terminal. What's a little strange is that normally you would think that if you set it to the original size for this font, then you could get it to come out sharp. But in Cygwin, and I think for this font, it usually would have been like 16 or maybe even 8, but I don't want it. I mean, 8, you could say a multiple. Maybe it could have been a 9, so we could try like 18. A perfect multiple would work. I can't do 9. That'd be too small to read. But if I did... Still looks slightly blurry. And I haven't set up like a user pref to automatically load this thing each time, so I have to type it manually. What am I doing? I can't type IBM. Yeah, it's still slightly blurry. I've also tried 32, I think, and that was still slightly blurry, so it's kind of weird. I don't know why it comes out that way in Cygwin. But, you know, it's running full speed, not having slow execution speed, high CPU usage like running in dosbox was, you know. This is just a regular Cygwin Windows Angband, you know. So that's fairly workable, I would say. Don't really like the slight blur, and this isn't necessarily the ideal font, but you can scale it to any size, and it's, you know, about the same level of blurriness, and you know, that would be all right. That would be more or less acceptable as a DOS style solution. I could have lived with that, but yeah, I thought I wanted more. I always want more. Oh, hello. So I thought I would try a different environment, a different front end, because I use MSys2 for the SDL2 front end, because Cygwin actually has some problems with the SDL2 front end. So let's get out of here with Cygwin. Oh, I could probably log out of this thing too. That's giving me some CPU usage I don't need. Bye-bye, DOS Angband. You're pretty crazy. Okay. So the SDL2 front end, which I compile using MSys2, I wanted to see if I could load, you know, fonts into that, some of these DOS fonts into that, especially these .fon fonts, which Cygwin did not load. And fortunately you can. There were some bugs and things, and you can't, at least for me, I couldn't put, if I had more than 32 fonts in my, so it's a little different, whereas in Cygwin is just loading, just reading your Windows font, what fonts you have installed in Windows. With MSys, or with SDL2 front end, you're just putting stuff into a directory in a folder there, specifically. Let's get down to it here. Angband, where are we at? Lib. Fonts, yeah, that's it. At least this is how it is when it's compiled. I don't know. If you had a distribution, it might be some. I think it would still be in lib fonts, probably, right? I don't know where else it would be. You just plop your fonts in here, and then they'll, well, hopefully come up in the game's font list, but don't have more than, how many do I have? I have 25 in here. If you have more than 32, at least when I go to font name, instead of this list popping up, it just crashes. The program crashes. So that was kind of a pain, because I actually wanted to check out 200 .fon format fonts, and I could only do that about 8 at a time, which was a bit of a drag. But I did it because I wanted to find the best one, and I just had to know, because I'm this obsessive weirdo. What it came down to, I went through all the fonts, all the FON fonts in the Ultimate Font Pack thing, and this one, this BM437 Wise 700B-2Y.fon, that was the one that seemed to work best to my eyeballs. 2Y means they actually scaled it vertically. They doubled the size vertically. A lot of the fonts that they did scale vertically came out looking to me a little blurry or stretched somehow. I don't know. It was kind of weird. They just didn't look quite right. This one I don't seem to have a problem with. I think it looks pretty good. It's nice and big. That was the main problem, was that out of all of these hundreds of, it was about 200 fonts, I think. And only, I think it was about 8 to 10 that I found were a decent size. Like, this is one of the larger ones. Because these FON fonts are bitmaps, and there's the SDL2 front end doesn't have a way to scale them. It says there's a size parameter that for the fonts, when you pull them down, it'll let you try to click on the size things here, but that won't work. And then it'll get a little weird after that. It turns out there's a little glitch there where because it knows that if it's a FON extension, normally it knows that it can't scale that, so it'll have this grayed out. But whereas if it was like a TTF font, it would let me scale it. But if the FON extension is capitalized, it doesn't know that it shouldn't let you try to scale it, so then it will. And those Ultimate Font Pack DOS fonts are all caps. So or at least the extensions are all caps. That's kind of weird. Why did they do that? Well, anyway, so I just changed mine to lowercase, and now it doesn't do that. That one TrueType font, that Perfect DOS VGA 437 or whatever .ttf font, that works here too, and it works without being slightly blurry like it is in Cygwin. So at least if you run it at, well, I should put that in here and show you. I've only got the one. Why didn't I keep it handy? Let's go dig it up. Where is it? It's not here. Oh no, there it is. Good. So yeah, you don't have to install these fonts in Windows to use them in the SDL2 front end. I'm not sure if it works this way for, I guess I should try that. Let's try it in regular. This is just the Windows Angband 424 that you download off of the official Angband site. Right, so lib font. Pop in a TrueType font. Let's also pop in an FON font I like. I think it's the B one. We'll leave the extension capitalized just to see if that is wacky like it is in the SDL2 front end. And then we'll go ahead and run this. I haven't tried this. I hope it doesn't make my computer blow up. Okay. Are any of these good? I don't know. Okay. Now there was a crash involving another crash, but this one was involving turning off the tiles and going back to, ew, I have mouse click moving, turning back tiles and going back to ASCII. That would crash. I got that to crash twice in the SDL2 front end after I had one of these funky fonts on, and but I couldn't reproduce it after that, so that was annoying. How do you, the menus are a little different here. Okay, it's a different selector, so that's probably not going to get overloaded when you have over 32 fonts, hopefully. Let's try it. Well, looks like it worked. So yeah, FON fonts work in here. Let's try the TTF one. Oh, did I not copy that one in? I don't think I did. No, I did. Oh. Oh, well, you can't do TTFs in here, it looks like. It only wants FONs. That's the format the default Angband fonts are in. So, well, no TTF fonts for although I think, maybe Backwards Eric had some way that people could do this. I don't know if he did for the Windows front end. I haven't been paying attention to the Windows front end, so I'm not really up on this. Anyway, an FON will work. So that's something. And then you would do, well, I mean, you could just run it with tiles, but the scaling is going to be wrong because it's not a square font, so your square tiles are going to get warped. So I wouldn't do that. So you would want to, how do I turn the, I want none. What? Uh-oh. Oh. Well, I don't know. What if I go back to a regular font? No? Why is it not letting me turn off tiles? Is there some other way to do it that I'm forgetting? Why is it locked on the Gervais tile set? Am I going crazy? Do they just not let you change this anymore? Or, oh, well, there were some changes because there were some problems if you changed it at certain points. So when can you change it? Now. Maybe oh, it's because that menu's open, that's why. Aha, so yeah, that kind of thing was causing problems. So that got fixed, so that's good. It's a little confusing though. So we go none, and then we have to go into the game =sign menu and do the load. Hold on, the letters are different? What's L instead of P? What? Oh, that's weird looking too. Anyway, use it should be, right? It should be font. If it's in here. Oh. Okay, well, you would have to copy that over. God, dang it. It's just not in here. Well, that's interesting. I wonder if it's not supported. Well, let's try it. Wow. Okay, well, let's go get one from the, from MSys 2. Breaking the rules. Look at that baby. In you go. Now you're gonna tell me you can't load? You're darn right you loaded. Oh. Well, so that doesn't work. Am I in the right? No, I'm not using. Wait, I didn't load my font, did I? Hello, load that font. Oh. Let's try loading our. Come on. Oh, well, it's not in there because this was put in probably after this, yeah, so this isn't even in. The support for this is not in the download. What am I thinking? This was added in the summer. It's not in there yet. It'll probably be in there in the next one that comes out. Well, that's good to know. I didn't think of that soon enough. I'm a dunce. Okay, well, that was a waste of time. Yeah, I'm not very smart. So yeah, it'll probably be in there in the next, 425 or whatever. Let's go back to the one I know a little more about. Do I have my true type font in here? I do not. Okay. Sorry, that was an annoying sound. I'm not going to do that again. I hope. Let's put our true type in here. Switch to that. Now this is coming up. I'm not having to do that font load font-ibm.prf every time because I loaded that. I loaded that with load p, and then I did which one? One of these save car screen options to pref file ones, I guess. Is that a U? Wait, it's under P, isn't it? No. U? No. Well, I put them in a pref file anyway. Basically just taking the ones from font-ibm.prf, take the stuff in there that ain't it. Where, why, how? This one. It has a nice compact version of it. So yeah, you just need to take these and put them in like your user.prf or whatever. Some kind of PRF that'll get loaded automatically if you're going to be doing it all the time. And then you won't have to type it all the time. So this starts out really tiny, this TTF, because the default size is 12. But this one you can scale, because it's a TTF, I guess. At this font looks sharp at 16. You notice the dot patterns sort themselves out. Size 16 and size 32. And 32 is as big as it lets you go. So those both have no blurring on them whatsoever, unlike Cygwin, which had a little bit of blur. So that works pretty well. Actually, this one doesn't have lines vertically, separating them vertically. I thought it did in Cygwin. Maybe it didn't. And anyway, so TTF works, again, I only found the one TTF font, I think, that worked. Most of the font, the .fon fonts all pretty much worked. And there's no scaling, so you never have to fix the size on them or anything. Like the TTF can get kind of size reset, and you have to change the size back sometimes. But yeah, the FON is nice and clean in that regard. And I guess, the game uses .fon fonts by default. The other nice thing, so they're the most supported, I guess. One nice thing about this font too is that it's a sans serif font, and it kind of looks, it's more or less in line with the other fonts, like the other Angband default fonts that I'm using in my sub windows. You can see that it looks fairly similar, not too dissimilar to those anyway, so it all kind of fits. And it's a lot easier to read than the default Angband font that I was trying to use before. And I have my beloved code block walls. So pretty sweet if you ask me. Oh, and this font in particular, this and a number of them are like this. But this one that I settled on, BM437 _ WISE 700B-2i.fon from the Ultimate Oldschool font pack or whatever it is. And that's all these font downloads are free, by the way. And I will have links or something in the description. Or, well, I'll link to the Ultimate Font Pack and this one. The other ones I'll put a link to the discussion of this whole thing on the Angband GitHub in the issue, because there I rattled off all kinds of details that I don't really... It would take up a lot of space in the description to try to regurgitate all of those. I wasted everybody's space there with my Ghostbusters blathering. It wasn't about Ghostbusters. It was just like the character. Oh, okay. Anyway, so yeah, this font also just kind of fits in with the look of the other Angband fonts. So I think that worked out pretty darn well. You know, I only had to sort through about 200 fonts. One thing I realized after doing this was you can, I mean, I had been playing with tiles with first the shock bolt and then the Gervais tile set. And the thing I didn't really, well, I knew, but I sort of forgot about as I played with them more, was that if you're using tiles and you want to get the actual like scaling that is legible and also not distorted like this, like the Gervais tile set is a 32 by 32 pixel tile set. So if you want to see that without distortion, you have to use a font that is like a perfect divisor of that or something. So like 16 by 16, and then you would have to multiply it up a bit. So you would do, well, you could do 2. That would get you to 32 by 32. That's the true size of this Gervais tile set. And that works, but for my eyeballs on this 1080p screen, that's a little tiny. Just a little. Well, it's definitely a little tiny. So I wouldn't do 3 because that's, that's halfway between 16 and 32, halfway between 32 and 64, so 48, and you're going to be missing some pixels, and it's going to be a little chunky. So the next perfect multiple would be 4, and that's what I was running at, but you actually can't see much. I mean, you're seeing a very tiny bit of the map of the level, whereas, I mean, you do get these, cute bitmaps and stuff, right? But I don't like the green walls in the Gervais tile set, though. It's like, what are we, underwater or something? How is there just seaweed on everything? If I go back to ASCII here, so tile set none. Didn't crash, thank God. One thing when you do that, tiles, I mean, I put in an issue about this because I hadn't really thought it through, and it's probably going to get rejected, but if you toggle tiles on and off, it resets your IBM font setting, that put in the special DOS characters. Because if I go back to my my DOS font now, it ain't got it. And I think the reason for that is that the tiles actually use different characters to display themselves. So they're resetting the characters because they use different IDs, character IDs, to summon the tiles in, to map the tiles essentially onto the font. So I mean, you obviously could work around that if the game just like saved the IDs that it was using before you turned a tile set on. Then when you set back to none, it reverted to those. That's probably what it should do, but it's not doing that now. So I am back on my font, but I'm gonna have to go back and load like my user.prf, which has that info. So there's our font parameters back for the IBM fonts. But anyway, notice how much more area I can see. Like, I was only seeing the very middle section of the screen when I had the tile set on and set to 4x4 scale. But so, like letters, turns out letters are just a lot easier to read at scale, at this kind of scale, than little detailed bitmaps are. That's a nice thing about, ASCII in general. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to be playing this way for a bit, see how I like this. I mean, I think this is what I want. I'll probably, I'll get some other burr up my britches eventually, probably, but this seems pretty good for now. You can, of course, because there is a built-in color editor, you could switch this to monochrome essentially by setting all the colors to a gray. Like if I was using the DOS gray, which is 170. And in fact, I did that. What did I call it? User mono. And I don't know. I guess if my eyeballs were particularly photosensitive, I might do something like this. But otherwise, it feels weird. It feels weird to have different font sizes in this same gray. And I don't think I would really want to do that if I could help it. So anyway, that is basically simulating DOS Angband in modern Angband, except now we're not actually running DOS or dosbox or anything. We're just running the standard Angband SDL2 front end, but just with a DOS style font that has the actual DOS symbols or glyphs or whatever the heck they're called for those crazy checkerboard walls, which is the main thing I like about the DOS look. And yeah, pretty much the best of both worlds. It's nice and fast and smooth SDL front end with that crazy DOS look. What more could I possibly want? I think that's, afterwards I'll remember whatever I'm forgetting to tell you about, but I think that pretty much covers it. Oh, well, there was one other thing at least. Backwards Eric was writing up a nice write-up for me as I was sort of remembering this there and looking for and finding these fonts. He was pointing out that well, a number of things that when he makes these posts and tells me actually how stuff works, and then I come and read it, I always understand like about half of it if I'm lucky, and then he usually has to patiently explain the other half of it to me as I flail around not understanding. And He's an incredibly patient person. I don't know why he does that, but it's nice. So he was pointing out that you could, with a Unicode font, I mean, you could make this work. You don't necessarily need one of these crazy DOS fonts, because there are, for instance, Unicode fonts can store all kinds of almost arbitrary number of symbols. For instance, I only found one Unicode font that actually worked, that actually had all the symbols and was, I guess, a monospace font, or qualified as a monospace font. And that's a massive, in terms of file size, it's like a 5 megabyte font. It's called Unifont. That's a free font that you can Google up, or, well, it's from this URL, Unifont. And that one works in the SDL2 front end. You can use that. Like, an advantage of the TrueType font was that you can use one TrueType font. Like, you could use the dare I try this? You could say use the 32 size in the main window, right? And then then you could put instead of the 8x16 there, I could do the 16 size TrueType of the, which is the font I'm using in the main window. So then I could have just a smaller version of that font over there, right? So now it's all the same look, which is kind of cool. This font is a little harder to read to my eyeballs, though, than the other one. Also, it's a little, like, I would say that sub window on the right, it's a little too bold, again, to be easily legible. But, it gives a certain unified look if you want to do it that way. So that's something nice about the TrueType fonts, because you can scale them. Again, there's only two sizes that actually work without being slightly blurred due to rescaling. You have to use, if you want to go with the native font size, if you want, perfectly sharp look, and that's size 16 and 32 for this one. Yeah, that's how that would go. So that Unicode font, let me go grab it, I guess. I'm forgetting now if there was something different about that one. Oh, well, the setup is the different part. So, yeah, it's a .otf format. And, oh yeah, so it is different because Unicode, and this was the part that Backwards Eric had to explain very patiently to me, because I totally just read right past it the first time. It's just straight over my head. You have to use different codes. So whereas with the actual sort of DOS fonts, they use the old code block, or whatever the heck it is, 437 codes, which again you can find. There's a I'll link to that GitHub issue where I was brain dumping this on Eric and the other developers, and he has his link in there to a Wikipedia article about. There's actually a Wikipedia article about the code blocks, and that breaks out the font details and what fonts might support them and what their codes are in, I think, in Unicode and in the original DOS. So these are the old DOS ASCII, extended ASCII codes, but with the Unicode font, it's not a DOS font, so you can't use those codes, and that's why it's coming out scrambled. What you have to do is use the Unicode equivalents, which you can find, for instance, in that Wikipedia article, and those are these. They're, 4 digits with a O and an X in front of that. And so you just use those instead of the DOS codes in your PRF file or whatever. I don't think there's a pre-made Unicode. Where are we at here? Customize. I don't think there's a pre-made Unicode one for that. Oh, there's no real reason why there would have been a pre-made PRF file for that. So you just have to make your own if that's what you want to do. Now, like I said, I could only find this one Unicode font that I could actually get to work, even though the Wikipedia article links to like 4 or 5, but the others just did not. The sites were no longer up, or the font did not actually come up in the menu here, possibly because they weren't monospaced or something else. They didn't qualify as far as the program was concerned. I don't know, but the Unifont was the one I could get working. So let's see, we're on Unifont. So now I do have to load my other PRF file that I made, not font-dos.ibm, is that what it is? But what did I call it? Oh no. All right. It's a user. I made a user unicode.prf, I think. There. And oh yeah, this one does scale. So size parameter will work. And again, I think it's 16 comes out sharp, and 32 comes out sharp, and 32 is the max size, as seems to be the case more often, well, all the time that I've seen, more or less. Well, no, I did find one that was max size was smaller, but anyway. So that one looks pretty good as well, and like the TTF, you could use that one at 16 and 32, so you could use it in the main window and a sub window, and it would, have that unified look if you want. I just didn't like the look of this one. It's a little kind of stringy. The actual letters are a little stringy. The walls are nice and seamless and stuff, but I found the letters themselves a little stringy for my taste on this font. But it would work. Pretty good font, and it's got like pretty much every Unicode symbol under the sun. Apparently, that's what it's known for, I guess. I don't know. I didn't really read up on it too much. But to me, this FON font, this big old Wise 700B double tall one works. But then if you're switching back, so you wouldn't really want to have both of these installed anyway, because you would then have to keep loading to different .prf files to change between the Unicode character ID scheme and the DOS character ID scheme, so it's loading up the right symbols for the right numbers. So now I've switched back to my DOS IDs, but it's still, I switched back to my DOS font, but it's still got the Unicode IDs in there, so I have to again load my DOS IDs back up, which I do have saved in my user there. Or I could have just quit and restarted, because they're in my user.prf, which is loaded automatically when you load the game. So anyway, I think this one's just pretty much the actual lettering is really smooth. It's kind of amazing. So that's what I came up with. You can actually compile, since, this summer, you can compile actual Angband into, actual current Angband, I should say, into into DOS and run it as a DOS program in dosbox or whatever you got, and that'll work. It's just, for me, it runs kind of slow. Which was a little too bad. So, that was cool, but maybe not quite as practical as I would have hoped. Also, of course, in this DOS IBM mode, we don't have this implementation does not include the old Robert Rollman graphical DOS mode, so you don't have any support for the DOS graphical tile stuff. Not that you would have that otherwise either, but and you don't have any support for sound or anything like that, which the old DOS graphical mode did. And I guess you don't have sub windows either. The DOS graphical mode had 2 sub windows below the main windows, kind of weird. But so what actually works much better these days and much simpler is just to find one of these fonts that has the actual DOS style symbols in it, and then load up a PRF file that changes the assignment of the walls and the floor tiles and everything to from the regular font assignments, character assignments, to the DOS stuff, and put in a DOS font, and away you go. And you're still using your regular modern front end. You're not running in DOSBox or anything. So pretty cool. Probably the way I'm going to be playing the game. Like I said, until I get some other silly idea. But for now, this is my current silly idea, which I am tickled pink by. That's all I got. I'm going to go. Thanks for watching. And I guess next time, hopefully I'm done just with these silly, this is what I did with DOS episodes, and can actually just get down to doing some playing now for at least a little while. That would be cool. So it's a different style of DOS Angband. It's Angband just with the nice, cool looking part of DOS and none of the dross of DOS. See that I just overdid that. Oh well. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna go. Thanks for watching. I probably forgot some other stuff I meant to tell you, but c'est la vie. That's it for now. See you later. Hello, little technical addendum here, because as usual, I make problems when I try to do technical things, and I had some help and useful tips as always from the incredibly patient and very talented and knowledgeable Angband programmer, Backwards Eric. So when you're using this DOS style font stuff, if you should happen to try to do that like I've been doing here, for instance, the .fon fonts from the Ultimate Oldschool font pack that I was looking at, including the one I ended up going with. This one. They do not have the normal accent marks IDs they don't have the normal IDs for accented characters or letters specifically. So this becomes an issue if you have, for instance, like I do, this longbow of Lothlórien, that I'm shooting with, the accented O in that does not translate correctly if you're using this DOS stuff. So there are a couple of things you can do about that potentially. One is you can use a Unicode font that has support for both sets of symbols, the regular type we're used to in Windows and the old DOS style type. And the only one that I specifically know about is the Unifont font that I mentioned earlier. Did I write down where you can get that? Oh yeah, that's from unifoundry.com/Unifont. Unifont looks pretty all right. I think I showed it during the video, but I do find this this other one just a little more legible, so I'm going to stick with that, even though I will have a few accented names rendering weirdly. I don't know. Anyway, I'm stubborn. But if you don't want to deal with that kind of thing, you can just run with the Unifont and everything should look fine. But you will have to load a .prf file that has those Unicode assignments in it. Where was the one I made? Let's see. That is in... this stuff. That tells the game where to get the Unicode symbols for the walls and floors. So you would have to save that in a .prf file and load it. Or, if it's in user.prf, it'll load automatically. Others load automatically in various ways. PRF files are useful things, but they're a little obscure. They aren't all excessively documented in the game manual. So you can do that with the Unicode, or if you're stubborn like me and you're going to stick with your FON font, you can, that does not have both sets of symbols, you can change the encoding in of files that have those accented names in them that are in the game's lib/game data folder. And as far as I could tell, it's just 2 files. I might be missing something, but I'll have to make another addendum. Artifact.txt and monster.txt that are in lib game data. And the only accented letters I could find were these. So, E with 2 dots, E with a slashy thing, capital E with a slashy thing, I with a slash, I with a point, O with a slash, O with 2 dots, O with a point. I don't know the proper names for these accent marks. I took French and I they had them in there, but I always forgot them anyway. U with a point, U with a slash, A with a slash, A with a point. So you would have to, well, what Backwards Eric told me was that you would want to change the encoding on these files. Now, I don't know the right way to do that. What I was doing was just a crude method of, what I did a little of is just replace these characters with the plain versions without the accent marks. So just like these, I would change to just a regular A, regular U, and so forth. It's still pretty legible that way. You just don't get the fancy accent marks. Now you can't just do that if you're running a game in progress, if you have a saved game going, because the saved game saves the accent marks from things you've already encountered in various files as you play. And if your save has the accent marks in it for the names, but you've changed your game source files so they don't have the accent marks, it won't know what to do, and it will either tell you your save file is corrupt or the game will just crash when you try to run it. So you can't really do that until you're starting a new character, and then even then you might have to go in and, well, you'll find that your lore.txt, your knowledge, your character knowledge, if I hit the tilde key here, for instance, and I go to monster knowledge uniques, see, I've already, past characters of mine, or my current character, have already encountered uniques with some of these accented names. Like there's Smeagol, his accented E is weird. Grishnak, his accented A is weird. Nar the dwarf, the accented A is weird. So I got Ugluk, the accented U. Agamaite, the accented E, however you say his name. Kim, son of Mim, and Ibun, son of Mim, those accented I's with the pointy eyes are weird. Mim, betrayer Turin, the accented I, and so forth. So, Nar the dwarf, the accent, alright, I did him. Or did I? Anyway, Nar the dwarf. So, yeah, you, those are stored in lore.txt that way, but it's also in the monster.txt and in your save file, and if those get out of whack, then you can't load your save. The game will crash. After you're done with your playing through with a character and you don't need that save file anymore, then in theory you can go into monster.txt and the lore.txt that you've generated with your characters and change those safely. In theory, anyway, it's you're not, the game doesn't officially support you doing this, so you're on your, try at your own risk. And you'll probably blame me too, and probably rightly so. I shouldn't tell people to do this stuff. I'm not telling you. This is what I do. I don't really advise that anybody imitates what I do, because what I do is really silly and at best. This is just what I do. And you can watch it. You can watch it come back and bite me. Yeah, so because I have my save going, I can't change all of that. I did go through and managed to change most of the stuff in my monster.txt, that because I haven't encountered a lot of the characters with the like uniques with accent marks before. I've never gotten that far, so I was able to change a bunch of them and then still load the game without crashing. So when I do encounter them, their accent marks they'll just have regular letters, but they won't have scrambled letters. But it does mean like my Bow of Lothlórien and these guys in my that I've already encountered and that show up in my knowledge base, those will be messed up. Also, there's a couple monsters with, well, there's a number of monsters with accent marks. There's like Dunedane or Dunedon mages. There's a Mumak. I don't know what that is, but the U in that is accented. So those will look a little weird, because I'm just gonna be playing this save probably for a long time, and I can't change them until I finish this save. So that's a warning not to do what I'm doing. There was another thing, which is that let's see if I can demonstrate this. Well, I can't because I didn't. Well, so when you toggle tiles on and off, tiles work by changing the assignments for the wall, well, for everything, including for walls and floors, including the walls and floors that you, if you're doing this DOS font thing, that you would have changed the IDs for when you loaded a PRF file with the DOS values for them in it. So I should, let's see if I can do this without breaking my own setup. Let's go to, oopsie. Wow, thanks, Internet Explorer. Let's just delete this. Okay, so normally this is in the SDL2 interface, and the tips that I'm giving apply to the SDL2 interface. The lore.txt generates in different spots as you play and encounter things. The game writes it out, or maybe when you quit the game. But it does save lore.txt in different locations on your system. Mine, because I'm running the SDL2 front end in Windows, it is putting lore.txt in my lib user folder. But if you're using like the Windows front end just from the version downloaded from the website, I think it sticks lore in a different spot. So you'll have to, the online manual goes into some of that stuff, like save game files are in different spots and stuff as well. So that might end up being somewhere else, depending on what version and system you're using. Did I just quit and say I'm doing it again? Because I can't remember what I've been doing 2 seconds ago. Okay, so here I am. I've got my user.prf, which loads my DOS walls and floor assignments for those characters. But if I toggle tiles, so let's turn Gervais on and then back to tiles none. See, it's reset the walls and floors. And now I could get that back by going to equal sign to open the menu and hitting P to load a user pref file and typing my user.prf, which is what loads by default when I run the game. So it's back, but that's kind of a pain in the wumpus. I could also just save the game and restart, but that's kind of annoying too. What you can do instead if you were toggling tiles on and off and your things got messed up, or what you can do to prevent that from happening in the future. That's interesting. It's printing out a parse error. It's probably something I screwed up. What is that? libtiles gervais graph dvg.prf. Let's see if that's something that I broke. It probably is. Boy. I was in lib. Tiles, Gervais, DVG-PRF, line 603. Oh. Oh. Well, that's something else I hadn't paid attention to. For Pete's sake. I see. So, yeah, well, this DOS stuff is not going to play correctly with tiles, obviously. So I guess the parse error is because these are I didn't mess with this file, so this isn't me having messed up the file. It looks like the tile sets actually have to specify, they have to specify, what character tile to use for all of these monsters, or whatever the heck these are. Do these even, these have accented marks in their name, and there are no doubt a lot more. Well, I know there are. So those accented marks are in here. What the game really should do, what games that I have happened to work on in the past, PC games and so forth, they don't, referring to stuff in the game by its proper name in code or in script is a bad idea, because if you wanted to change the spelling, you have to then go edit all your script and code files that ever referenced that character and change it. What you would normally do would be to reference everything by unique identifier numbers or codes, letter and number codes that you don't have to change just for like spelling reasons and stuff. But that's not the way Angband does it currently. So so stuff like this will happen. So characters with accented marks, if you're doing this and running with a tile set, if you're running a DOS font, one of these old FON fonts, for instance, and you're loading up the DOS walls and floors, but it wouldn't matter. You wouldn't mix this with tile sets anyway, so I guess it's not a big deal, but it is something. If you were trying to mix the DOS ASCII walls and floors with a tile set, you would break monsters that have accented names, it looks like. Well, that's interesting. But there'd be no reason. Even I wouldn't be doing that because there's no point. Okay, so the tip that Backwards Eric gave me to avoid having your stuff reset when you've toggled. What am I doing? Oh no! I just don't randomly accidentally click things. Put that back on messages. Is that you can, and this is not documented clearly in the manual or really at all, you can go into lib, you would quit the game. Let's see. You go into lib and you find that under customize there's that font ibm.prf that was what I was loading initially to get the old DOS stuff to show up after you switch to an old style DOS font, and then I saved that into my user.prf so that it'll do that automatically. It's doing that automatically for me now because I've saved that, but it turns out that the game will look for a specific .prf file when you do things. The SDL2 front end will look for a specific PRF file when you initialize it by doing something like toggling textures on and off. So if you have that file in there, it'll load up PRF settings, and then it will fix, if you have the correct settings, it'll fix that little issue we saw with the walls and floors getting reset. So you can go to lib, customize, copy the font-ibm.prf, take it into lib user, paste it here, and rename it to a very specific name, which is font-sdl2.prf. Okay, so that's there. I've renamed my font-ibm.prf from lib customize and moved it over to lib user and renamed it font-sdl2.prf. So it's right there. Now, rerun the game, and to demonstrate, I will toggle tiles on and then off, and look at that, my walls and floors come back. I didn't have to go reload my PRF that has those font-IBM settings in it. So that's a cool trick that I'm glad Backwards Eric knew about, because it is not really documented in the online manual. There's some documentation about .prf files. It does mention the ref.prf file, which does, if you open up your, so where is that? That's under lib customize. These are some of the PRF files that the game kind of uses automatically. So font PRF in there. If you did happen to look at that, you would notice that it's got system-specific subfiles. These are the files that it will check, and they're in here too, for when it's initializing one of these system. So you can have them for Windows, for the ASCII front end, the GCU front end, for the X11 Unix system or whatever the heck that is, for the SDL2 or the SDL1 front end, the SDL2 front end for DOS. The DOS front end may not be supported for long, but well, that is the font-ibm.prf. This, I guess, would be if you're running the actual DOS version that you can currently compile, which I showed earlier. And anyway, that kind of stuff. I don't even, what is ACM? I don't know. So yeah, it does some stuff for the SDL2 front end automatically, but it does not, of course, do that DOS wall and floor setting stuff that font IBM does. So, but if you do have a font SDL2.prf also in your user directory that, like I just made, copying the font-IBM, then it will load that when you initialize the SDL2 front end after toggling a texture on and off or something. So, good trick. All this is really obscure and weird, but it worked. So thanks once again, Backwards Eric, for the tips. Let this just be a warning that if you follow my weird edits, it will break stuff, because I break stuff all the time. So, yeah, you use my silly ideas at your own risk. But anyway, that's the kind of stuff I'm doing. That's the way I'm breaking my version of Angband currently. So, anyway, yeah, I if you follow my tips, your version of Angband will almost certainly break. Let's just leave it at that. I can describe the things I try to do to prevent that, but it's just I'm just a disaster, a rolling disaster here in Angband. So keep that in mind, and thanks for watching.